Yes, Brooklyn, Sam, good morning. Happy
Hello.
Tuesday. And welcome everyone to this edition of the Content Power Hour. I really need like an intro music track here. I feel like we got to
Right?
get amped up in some way.
I know we need like not Jeopardy, but something like more fast beat, like
For
game
my
show
money,
music.
sipping some red wine.
Worth?
I love it. Get some TikTok trends in here. I'm digging it.
My
All
money
right,
don't jiggle jiggle.
exactly.
I know the dance.
Hey, because I gotta drive, I want to stay alive.
We're just going to use that as intermission music at some point
Keep
when
it
we're
up.
transitioning. I like it. Well, if you're here and joining us, please drop a hi in chat. I know we're broadcasting this across different channels, so just because you're the only one in that chat doesn't mean you're the only one here. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. And today should we call it a face-off? I don't know. Is that unfair? It's a face-off. Yeah. It's a face-off of two different intelligence products, Cognism and People.ai. And we've both recruited some Cognism and People.ai folks to join us today. So, but if you're not from the companies, hopefully the results of today is you learn a little bit about what different content strategies are and the amazing insights from everybody on this call. Because Brooklyn, you had said in a post the other day that some of what we're doing today is what you do before all of your sales calls, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Sam and I were talking through it yesterday, and I realized, this is basically what I go through anyway, looking at the resources they have, their blog, their SEMrush profile. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, we got some, I guess, complimentary sales call prep for all these companies. Nick, did we want to do a question of the day?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Did you have a question? Something content related?
Sam, I think we need to do one for Tiki just for fun. Want to do your favorite trend? What's the trend that lives rent free in your brain?
Ooh. Well, the first thing that's coming to mind is one that I just really don't like. Because I like a lot of them, but I have like a least favorite one right now. And it's that like Christy wake up thing. I don't know if y'all have heard it.
Yeah.
But yeah. But there was a post from Max Cohen the other day. He used it and it was amazing. So it was like when your sales rep like screen freezes and you're just like, wake up, and it was hilarious. So
don't like this.
Yeah. But other than that, every time I hear that sound, I'm just like,
Have you watched Stranger Things? That might help.
Yeah. I did finish it. I think that's why it terrifies me. I'm not like a scary show person. And so it was like in a nightmare or something. And I think, it just freaks me out.
That's great.
What Sam's not saying is I'm on Guatemalan Wi-Fi. So she sent it to me being like, this is me on sales calls because my internet will just crap out and she's left hanging in the wind.
It's so true. We'll be going like really detailed on something that's like not my specialty, and then it will freeze, and then I'm just like, I think what he's saying, and then I have to like fill in the space. It's good.
That's great. How about you, Brooklyn? What's a favorite trend of yours?
Are we talking about TikTok specifically?
Yeah.
I have Sam is my only conduit to TikTok.
Okay.
So what she said.
Some of the TikTok trends make their way over to Twitter though, like the he's a 10 thing.
Oh, that was a TikTok thing? I didn't even know that.
It started on TikTok, so you might know some of the trends from Twitter.
I'm the geriatric millennial making a joke on Twitter that I didn't even know started on TikTok.
I love that.
You mean you're one of the ones that like takes your tweets, screen captures them, and puts them on LinkedIn?
Oh no, I would never do that. Okay. I actually was off of TikTok. I saw somebody else do that, and I was like, that's a really quick way to make those the slideshows on LinkedIn. You just screenshot your thread. So I tried it. Don't knock it, Nick. It worked today.
It was a good post.
Yeah, it
I
does
liked
work.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Nick, do you have a favorite Tiki trend? And then we can dive in.
You know what? I love TikTok so much that I took it off my phone for a while.
Yeah.
Because you'll go on a scrolling spree. I will say it's interesting how much the audience and the comments have changed. Because it used to be just kids, and got like the comments weren't really all that interesting. But now you go into the comments like on Will Aiken stuff or a couple different people, and you look at who's actually commenting and like the detail they're going into, and I think YouTube's in trouble. But I can't tell you to talk about trends because I haven't been watching lately.
I have a soft spot for this M83 song, I think, that was used in Blade Runner. So it's like a remix, and it's just like background, like horn synth noise used over like landscapes. I don't know. It really just hits the spot for me where it's like gorgeous landscapes with a good soundtrack. I could show up to TikTok every day, and that's all I need. Very niche content. The algorithm serves it to me well. I like it. All right, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
So the way that this is going to work, everyone, thank you for being here. We're going to go through 4 different rounds of evaluating the company, and each of us have been tasked with evaluating, and dare I say judging, each of these 4 different areas inside inside one of these companies. And so Brooklyn is going to be talking about and evaluating the content. Sam is going to be talking about and evaluating their social. Nick is talking about and evaluating sales, since content just doesn't stop at marketing. And then I'm going to be talking about and evaluating messaging. And each of us are going to score our section out of 10. And then at the end, we can tally it up. And we have a nice face-off between Cognism and People.ai. So let's get started with Cognism. And our first judge round up, Brooklyn. What's their content like? What's going on in their content area?
I mean, I won't bury the lead. I think they're doing a great job. I was just honestly blown away by a lot of it. Their resources that they don't gate, by the way, most of them at least, their blog posts, the way they reuse their content, their SEO presence and rankings, I think across the board, doing really well. So we can maybe break that down a little bit. Mm-hmm. So shout out to, I know I'm connected to a few folks over there, Joe, senior content manager, and Alice, CMO. I was honestly, I've known about Cognism, so I'm interested to hear your take on social, Sam, because I haven't seen a lot of it come through on social, which is where I typically discover new content. So now I have another resource to come back to that I think is, up there with HubSpot with the breadth and depth of what they offer. So, I mean, number one, they break down their resource center with books, ebooks and guides, interactive resources, and then their blog. And I think pulling out those interactive resources was a really cool choice. They have like an ROI calculator on there, so folks can navigate over there quickly. And I'm pretty sure that's the only part that they gate somewhat. So it seems like a great lead generation resource for them. But what I really loved, honestly, was their ebooks. Ungated, again, you just click download now and it opens up a new HubSpot CMS tab and you jump right in. Can we screen share on this or no? I should have asked that before.
Yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Yeah, let me pull up this one. So there's a few things about their ebooks I love. Number one, I think the format is super cool. It's really clean, not direct. It's very scannable, lots of headers and bullets, short paragraphs, lots of visuals like these. Just really breaks it down in a very consumable, scannable, shareable way with all these images. So I think that's number one. Number two, a lot of their sections in this No Fluff Guide to Inbound Marketing, which is like, I think close to 70 pages, super long, in-depth resource. But a lot of it is pulled from past guest posts. So they've had a what it seems like a successful guest post program. So they have guest posts from like RankPay, 𝙚𝙬𝙮𝙯, I think a few others in this guide that were posted back in 2020. But for the relevant sections in this ebook, they just pull the guest post like basically word for word to fill out that section, which I mean, that feels like smart content marketing to me, because like this guest post already went really in depth on all things PPC. So instead of having to rewrite everything, they can, number one, have their work by just pulling in the guest post. And number two, it brings some authority to it. So instead of it just being from the Cognism brand, it's Sam Warren talking here, or I'm forgetting the name from 𝙚𝙬𝙮𝙯, but whoever these guest post authors were speaking to something that they know really in depth. So it's like, it's a smart way to get more out of your content that's at this point 2 years old and bring some authority in the process. So I thought that was really cool to see, because you don't see that often. So that combined with like just the format with the headers, visuals, bullet lists, quotes, it's skimmable, it's shareable. I think that makes their long form resources really unique. And like nobody's gonna be like, oh, I thought I'd seen this guest post. I thought I'd seen this paragraph on PPC in a guest post 2 years ago. Like nobody's gonna know. So why double your work as a content marketer when you can use the words of somebody, an expert in the field, to fill out a really in-depth ebook?
A quick question for you. I saw there's sometimes where they turn into ebooks and other times where they sit as organic, like click through long form articles. I forget exactly which one it was. Maybe it's not their sales process handbook, but it was another one in their resource library. Do you have any like pros or cons about keeping things in PDF versus keeping things native on a site? Or is there any trade-off, or do you have a preferred for something that long?
Yeah, I mean, for something this long, I think the PDF works. It's like, let me scroll down. It's like a long piece. Even their other one, oh yeah, that's not even the long one. Their sales handbook was like 30 pages. This one's like 80, 90 pages. So I think for something this in-depth, the PDF works great, especially because they can more easily format it to be scannable and visual. I think to do that on a web page would take more money and more resources to work with either your in-house developer or somebody who can really make it visual and engaging and even interactive on a web page versus in a PDF. So I think this was it's like best of both worlds. I feel like this was a relatively, I don't want to say low effort because it's very intentional, but I would imagine a high ROI piece of content because they used a lot of the content they had up already. The visuals are very simple and straightforward, almost templatized, looking at across their other PDFs, which makes it easier to spin these things up for a lower cost and faster.
That's awesome.
But like some of our other clients have like ThoughtSpot, Mixpanel have done the visuals on their page, and I think that can work well. It just is, I know it takes, like the Mixpanel guide that we wrote, I think after we turned it over to them, it took like another 6 to 8 weeks to get it up on the site.
Totally. I was going to ask for a score, but Nick, you might have a question.
Looking through all this content, did you have an idea of who they serve or who they do not serve?
Yeah, so it's a little funky, especially comparing to People.ai, because I feel like People.ai has a much more specific ICP, whereas Cognism, because it's intent data versus pulling all your pieces together, I think it appeals to marketing leaders, to sales managers, even to, I think a lot of their content speaks to reps specifically, but that feels purposeful because they're basically giving as much resources as possible to the go-to-market org, whether that's a sales rep or the CMO. So it was with the content itself, it was a little I don't want to say unclear, but a broad net, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing in this case, because they're literally talking about like lead enrichment, which I think lots of different functions can use. But what I did get, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Morgan, because I know you're talking about messaging, but their homepage copy is awesome. Like, this is
I have some notes.
watch some other cool stuff. Like, I jumped on it and I was like, wow, that's great. Instead of like words, like, yeah, it just was very differentiated, which I loved.
So out of 10, how would you rank their content, Brooklyn?
Out of 10, I think like a 9, honestly. I want to reserve, if we're doing more, since we're doing more of these, I want to reserve the 10, but like, I think at a 9. Like their organic traffic is great. They're at 80,000 at least. That's what SEMrush shows. Their stats might show more. Consistent tone. They tie their CTA, a lot of their CTAs, to 3 differentiated newsletters instead of like a book a demo or a sales page. So it's like one for marketing leaders, one for sales, I think one for reps. So it sets it up to be supported with a drip campaign instead of pointing to a sales page. So yeah, I think a 9.
Awesome. Starting out strong. Sam, social.
Yeah.
What's up with social?
I love having the context of their blog and their content before jumping into social, because they're doing an amazing job on LinkedIn. Like, major props. I think this is the best company account like I've seen in a minute. I think they're doing a really, really good job. And it looks like I went back to see if this strategy, like how long they've had this particular strategy in place, and it looks like they've adopted, or at least like doubled down on, a new strategy in the last like 4 months. It's very like value led. They're not promoting anything. And so I think that's huge. And they're super consistent. Like, they had 40 something posts go out last month. So they're really nailing that. And yeah, so that's just kind of like my overall take. I think I saw like there could be some opportunity to get more engagement, like comment wise, on these posts, but yeah, overall, like, amazing. And as far as like the actual content of what they're putting out on LinkedIn, like I can tell they have this value-led LinkedIn strategy, and they even talk about it in some of their posts, like to kind of help their followers, encouraging their followers to do the same thing, which I really liked. So what they're sharing is like practical tips, advice. They do a really good job of highlighting their experts. Like, they have a lot of quotes pulled in to a lot of social posts. And I don't see that very often. It's like they'll explain it, but then they're like, and here's, our sales leader's take on this thing. And that was really cool to see too. And so it's cool, yeah, to see their content. They've got these ebooks, these newsletters. It's not apparent to me immediately on LinkedIn, like, where their content is coming from. So if they're posting a tip, like, I don't know that it's coming from their ebook. And I think it's a cool strategy because they're just building trust and like not asking for anything, and they're presenting themselves as a helpful resource. So the goal would be like, follow us for this, and that eventually they would go looking for something deeper. But this is like one of the first times where I've seen, when I'm going through the comments, I'm not seeing like, check out the rest of this here. So that's rare, I think. I thought they had the educational content like on lock. I thought that maybe in terms of increasing engagement, that maybe some more like entertainment style posts or inspirational posts could probably help, because they've got like all the educational stuff down. That could be a cool area to start interjecting. And as far as like formats go, they never reshare. Like, they don't do any of the typical things that I'm thinking like, no, don't do that. So that just had me excited as I was looking at it. They really mix it up between text posts, videos, polls, carousels. Like, they're really using different formats. Even with their text posts, they're finding like new and interesting ways to present the information. Like they've got some different series going, like school is in session, Q&A time. They're repurposing their poll results and like, here's what the survey says kind of thing, expounding on the learnings they got from the polls. So I think that this is a good example of like how to do it well. And I would encourage going to follow and like getting some ideas of how they're, repurposing some of their content. And as far as like areas for improvement go, in that it feels kind of granular. But like, I think that they're really nailing their strategy and that's okay. Like their improvements are kind of fine tuning right now. Would be some better hooks. I noticed that like when I'm scrolling through their feed, some of the first words that I see like are it's Q&A time. It's the start of a new month. In case you missed it, survey says. Those words don't like, I'm digging, so I'm going to hit see more, but I know that somebody who's just stumbling upon their page might not click to see more. Like, oh, I wasn't even a part of the survey. Why do I care? Kind of thing.
Well, it's like an email just following up, delete.
Yeah. So you gotta, I don't think those hooks are like stopping people in their tracks, just like the email headline. So they don't know exactly what they're going to get out of the post. And I think that they are like burying some really good insights underneath just a bad hook. So I just like I had an example to share, like they have a post with the opening line, like it's Q&A time, and it has an actual script for what to say to a prospect when they hang up on a cold call. So like, I was just thinking that they could say that right at the top, like try saying this the next time your prospect hangs up on you. And that would immediately be like, I want to know what the rest of this post is. It's actionable. It's relatable.
Did you look at their CMO's profile, by the way?
So
yes.
So I have a question for you, because the CMO profile stood out to me because there's a lot more multimedia content on her feed compared to the company's page, where like she's resharing videos and demos and other stuff like that. And a lot of the company page was text. And I didn't know if you had any thoughts about like mixing it up, or whether that's the wise thing to do for the company, or whether that's fine for the personal, but maybe the company should stick with what it's doing. An honest question. I don't know how I would answer it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's always a toss-up, because I think that the text posts tend to get more engagement. So, and I hate that, because it's like a lot of times the videos can be really high value, but I still see that the text posts seem to get the most engagement. But I think that mixing it up is a better viewer experience. And so that would fit in with their strategy of like, this is just for the reader. It's not all about like getting the likes and, the algorithm to love you. So, I did really like how active she was, and that she's sharing valuable content. She was also like mixing it up with company updates and getting really great engagement on all of it. So
cool.
Did you get a chance to look at any other like employee profiles, how everyone else is doing with the employee engagement end of things?
Yeah, I looked at their CEO, and so I looked at the top first, and then I tried to like pull in some examples too from their company. He's present on LinkedIn and has a huge following, and I thought that was like, he's not super active though. Like that could be an opportunity to use his big following and his the fact that he's the CEO could be taking advantage of that more. But yeah, I thought there was some good things to shout out. Like they have a brand ambassador with a history in sales who's really active. He's often featured like on the company page.
Yeah, Ryan.
Their global head of demand gen is really active. They have a senior content executive who's like building her personal brand. She doesn't have it's not fully built up yet, but like she's consistently putting out content. So my thought there was that they have a really good foundation of leaders who are active on social that they could continue to build on.
It's
Nice.
interesting because that flows right into sales.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah,
So
the
how would you
profiles.
score social overall, Sam, for Cognism?
Yeah, I said this was tough, but 8 out of 10. And I thought of going higher, but I just like they have a really great strategy. I think there are like some fine-tuning things they could do. And I also just didn't want to give away my 9 and 10 too quick. But
Okay.
best I've seen, and I think 8 out of 10 is a really good score. So
Agreed. That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, on to sales, since content doesn't stop at marketing. Nick.
What?
Because it's illicit, so I have to get explicit. As a matter of fact, I sip on the yak.
I love it.
I was impressed even just looking at their social profiles just for sales. And so like there's 170 showing on Sales Nav of business development and sales. And if I go and put on the spotlight posted in the last 30 days, I still get 59. But the thing that impresses me about the 59 is just like Sam was saying, is they've taken the content from their page and it's actually formatted for LinkedIn. And so people are able to consume and able to go and actually be active. So they've done a really good job. The one thing that's really interesting though is going through all of this, even in their titles, it's commercial and enterprise, but in no place was there a bifurcation in any of the content that says, hey, I'm not for you. And so I went through their whole demo process, which shows me that because they're so socially active and they have such great content that they have a big inbound program, but their inbound program is a bit of a fight as a buyer. So how it works is they throw you into a 15-minute qualification call where they should just not have it. There's no qualification happening. And then they move you into a demo, and it's a great product. They know what they're talking about. But when you get to their pricing shows that they're for a very specific market. And it made me really question the whole process because it almost felt disconnected where they started their pricing. And being in sales and working with companies, my first question that came to my mind is, I wonder how often you have to discount, because there's a sticker shock because the content didn't lead me up. Great content, high value. I don't disagree with anything, but nothing mentally prepped me for the price or the types of companies they worked for. So I was a bit surprised coming to the end how they structured things, because I didn't feel like there was any disqualification that I went, oh, okay, no, this isn't for me, but it's fantastic product. I can see why sales teams get great results with it.
But they did share their pricing before you actually got on a call, or no?
No, it was at the end of the demo, which is
At the
pretty
end of the
normal.
demo. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, great sales team, well trained. I have absolutely nothing bad to say. My thought is, being such a strong inbound program, my worry is how much time they're wasting with people going through the entire funnel to only learn that it's not a perfect fit, and then they're stuck playing a discount game. So kind of tying in your content piece with social to the actual sales flow, I'm worried that they're going to have a clogged pipeline with so many meetings where there could be some type of qualification, even in the demo form. And I'll talk about People.ai because they did something good with that, but just something to consider on the sales side.
You don't have to share the pricing itself, but is it high enough where it would actually like disqualify small businesses? Okay.
100%.
Yeah, then that's a really good point.
So
Because a lot of their content, I see the context of your question earlier, because a lot of their content could be, it could be a 10-person team and you'd benefit from their content, but not know that you couldn't benefit from their product.
And like, if you look at how they actually do their sales titles, it's commercial and enterprise, which tells me mostly it's going to be mid-market and enterprise. And I'm guessing that it's going to be somewhere between like maybe 50 is the bare minimum that they would work with, but it's probably closer to like 200 plus. But I never got that going through the process. And so that's kind of why I brought it up. It's not expensive by any means. Like, it's very good. They've priced it for their value. It's just, I wasn't ready reading through.
Well, how would you score then sales, Nick, out of 10?
I This is hard because their content's so good. Like, they've really set the bar for a lot of companies. Their new branding is phenomenal because they just did that a month ago. So they've tied that in really well.
Mm-hmm.
The executive team is leading by example. And so it's like, but their actual sales process is clunky. So I would probably give them a 6. Like a 5 or a 6. And if they just cleaned up that disqualification so I knew what I was doing, I'd instantly bump them up to an 8 or a 9 because everything else was great.
So Anthony, sorry.
Go
Anthony
ahead.
asked a question in the chat, which is he's asking more, could they have done a good job of calling out their ideal customer and repelling quote unquote prospects who are not a good fit? And it sounds like the answer is yes, but could you maybe share a little bit about how a company like Cognism could do that effectively in the process that you went through?
So there's 2 different ways that I really like, and I've talking to sales leaders that they've actually seen a lot of results doing it, is that first either the pricing page or the demo page. So when you click book a demo, it'll say this is not for, and it gives you that disqualification before you actually. So they'll have like the hierarchy, they'll have like disqualification, and they'll have book a demo on the bottom right. So you have to see it before you scroll. You go and zoom down to book your meeting, and you put all your information in. So it kind of stops you in your tracks, or in the landing page. But I feel like, and this is good for you guys, I feel like if they would have done this on the landing page, it would have took away from the feel of their brand and their content because they're such a great resource for sellers in general.
So better on that book a demo page, sort of like when somebody's ready to take action, have that pro-con disqualification, basically.
And I like that too, because depending on what product page they're on, or how, like if they have to pick a product too, it might even have a disqualification in that form where it's unique to that particular product. That would be something I would play with just to go and clean that up, because honestly, I'd get rid of the qualification call. There was no value in it. I would just go and automate that in the form and do something, and then maybe use enrichment. You're in sales intelligence software. You could also use your own data to go and see, if you have the right title, right person, do some lead scoring in there. But without getting too complicated, you could just have it really simple. And this is who it's not for. Our customers over this, head count or this many salespeople see the best bang for their buck, or whatever that looks like, right?
Super interesting. All right, so we have reached the final judge, and I can be fairly quick about this since messaging sort of permeates everything that we've talked about so far: content, social, sales. Sort of my framework for everyone, sort of what I just think about is like, do I know who's it for and what's it for? Like, those are the essential design thinking questions. And it was very funny because when I started to review Cognism, their homepage was very different than what it is today. So maybe somebody got wind of this power hour and decided to change some stuff up so that they made a good impression. And I will say, if you did that, you made a great impression, because your homepage is exceptionally clear about what you do. I am deeply impressed, I think, through both the main landing page as well as the specific product pages, outside of the use cases, about how much like they refer back to almost like jobs to be done sort of languaging. It's very clear that whoever's writing or putting together, or the team that is using customer language, that their customers say we can do these things, and so they're just repurposing those into headlines. Like, even on their prospector product page just says, find audiences that match your ideal customer profile in seconds. And that's the only headline I could ever need to understand what that product is. Like, that's okay, cool, sweet, done. Very clear to me. Honestly, I was impressed even on some of the specific, like sometimes usually you get further down into some of their use cases and it gets a little more vague because some companies like to accommodate new audiences, and so they don't have as strong of an insight. And I would say even in their like RevOps use case page, I think it's pretty clear again that they've talked with their audience, they're using language from their customers, and they're orienting it around this jobs to be done framework. Like on RevOps, there's like a score with precision headline, and then it's just avoid the trap of false precision and don't let bad data break your scoring. That clearly sounds like they know the problem. They know the way a RevOps professional would talk about it. They've really matched those things up. So those are a couple things like I pulled out. We've already touched on, though, I think the main problem, which is even though the what's it for is really clear, I'm not 100% on who's it for. Like, who's it for from an industry sense? Done. I get it. Like, it's, oh yeah, I understand the use case here, even from their homepage, that if I'm a buyer that needs mobiles and emails and I'm in B2B and I likely have some sort of cold calling team, or I have people doing outbound email, I have some sort of sales led development motion, like from an internal perspective, those are probably some targeting criteria I would set up. That's clear. But if the sales process ends up that you actually should just be automatically disqualifying a good chunk of the market based on your pricing, then I think your messaging should clarify that. And I think it's that tension I think we've all identified today in different ways, which is like, do you throw that on the homepage? Do you put it on the book a demo page? Absolutely. I think that's a great point to clarify in the sales process. And especially, Brooklyn, what you said sort of reoriented how I was going to address this, which is like, if you have this content hub, this resource hub that's so powerful, my thought is like, that's amazing, and you want people to engage with that. So you don't want to disqualify people from getting your resources, even if you want to disqualify people from going through your sales pipeline because your calendars are too busy and you can't orient to the right deals. But I will say the thing I wish they did clarify just a little bit from the messaging side is, let me pull this up really quick. It was further down on like here's how you can use Cognism to hit quota every month. I felt like there was a lot of like, here's how to use the product sort of examples. Like, here's prioritize buyers who are ready to buy, buyer intent, find net new leads, and all the rest of it. But that could be a good opportunity to add clarifying language for the right size, because there's like a why Cognism header right below that. And there's like, again, the features and benefits of the product and also some jobs to be done language. But that's like an awesome opportunity to add like, here's who we serve, here's the sorts of companies that we work with. So it's not like the top, but the further somebody is engaging, the further clear it gets. So those are some key takeaways, at least.
I think it's time to go and score and keep on rolling.
Honestly, I think I'm so impressed by their languaging. I'm going to give like a solid 7 out of 10. I think the who's it for needs to get refined, even if it's not like super clarified. I think the other thing I missed a little bit was there's sort of like the content strategy that I saw is incredible. And I echo everything that Sam and Brooklyn have said. And I think that there's some opportunities that they've even brought up to be able to tie that back to the overall message of the company and value proposition in just like little refined ways that could also bump that up across all the different channels. So a solid 7, I think. I just really wanted more. Am I too hard?
Like I was way too generous with mine. Got a rubric in my head now, though.
Okay. So, get my little calculator out, tallying up the scores here. 13, 21. Cognism is getting a solid 30 out of 40, I believe. Just great score overall. So, yay! Congrats to Cognism. All right, let's move on to People.ai. We've got some time left today and get going on there. So we're just going to cycle through once again. Brooklyn, People.ai.
Yeah. Let's see. Now I'm just stuck on my university brain translates that into like a D+, C-, and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you guys should have given like 9s. But I hear you. Okay. Yeah. People.ai. Really cool tool, like brings all of your data together. I don't want to get into the messaging in, but like it just was really clear the value that it would bring for go-to-market leaders, revenue leaders. The issue I saw is I didn't see a lot of that reflected in their content. providing detailed, helpful content for who their ICP was, in a couple of different ways in their gated assets and in the blog. I think they've done something interesting, where they, at least what they have on their page, they are focused on a few specific industries. They have life sciences, manufacturing, and telecom. So like moving outside of typical B2B tech. And I was excited to see that because I think there's a really cool opportunity to create unique content in those spaces that are maybe a little bit typically old school in marketing. You can create things that can kind of be fresh in their space and show them what can be possible. And some of their topics do that. Like they have an ebook on go-to-market transformation for life sciences. So specifically speaking to one of their verticals that they've highlighted, which I was excited to see the topic. But then the resource itself just kind of didn't quite meet that mark. The first couple of pages really speak in more general terms about predictable pipeline, revenue performance, things that would be applicable in basically any sales org. The one area where they do dig into specific elements for life sciences companies is trends threatening sales success, and they talk about healthcare going digital, buying groups growing, buying and selling has gone online, things that like maybe some companies that are selling into this space might be behind on, and People.ai has an opportunity to help on. So they identify these problems in 2 pages, 4 paragraphs, but then the rest of the piece really comes across as product messaging for People.ai. It doesn't feel like a true guide to what go-to-market transformation can look like, even apart from People.ai. And this is my biased opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think what good content can do is separate those 2 things out and connect in the story of the product without saying, here's our ultimate guide to XYZ. And then the whole piece is basically the way to do XYZ is to use our product. And that's kind of what I was getting from the guide. Combine that with like the design where it feels very dense, very product focused, even with the screenshots, like long text on pages. It just didn't feel like something that would be all that engaging to their ICP or personas, I should say, at these life science companies. So the resources themselves felt like there was some room to improve. On a positive, apart from that specific piece, in gated resources, they had lots of free templates, which I think always work really well, or not always, but for the most part work really well. As gated assets, is providing templates for whatever's going to be relevant for revenue leaders. So they did have a lot of those sprinkled in, which was cool to see. On the blog side, they have a very consistent and high publishing cadence. I think it looked like, at least recently, 3 articles a week. So they're clearly putting a lot into putting out content. And a lot of it seems aimed at SEO, which is nothing wrong with that. But a lot of the SEO pieces seemed a little off base to who they were actually wanting to be talking to, which I know we talked about a little bit with Cognism, where there was that disconnect. Like they were either not very high intent keywords. They weren't things that actual revenue leaders would be searching for. It's more things that like individual reps would be searching for. Or they were branded or highly product focused. So my question is, their SEO traffic has ticked up over the last year or 2. I think it's doubled in the last year and a half. So clearly some good progress, but I wonder what conversion looks like off of those pages. And I imagine the conversion rate is not great considering the lack of intent and a lot of the keywords that they're ranking for. And then last thing, I know I've been going for a minute. The last thing is, I think they're leaving a lot on the table with articles that are ranking on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They put out a lot of content over the last couple of years. But a lot of it's sitting down on page 3 or 4 and clearly not getting any traffic, because who goes to page 2, let alone 3 or 4? So I think like if I were to make a recommendation, I think they could do 2 things to increase their traffic with content they have up already. They could refresh the content that they have up already to make it more in-depth, more granular, more focused. And they could honestly start driving some more backlinks to their content. Like they have, I think, a 46 or 47 in domain authority, which is respectable, but I think it's hurting them in their actual rankings in some of these higher volume, higher competitive keywords. So I think they could honestly pause new publishing, reorient what they're going to be doing down the line to be higher intent, and take what they have up and refresh it and ideally point backlinks to it. And I think they would see it going from like this to like this.
Super interesting. So what about a score?
Now I'm going to feel like I'm still being generous compared to you guys. So I think probably like a 5. I think they've clearly made progress in their traffic, in the content that they're putting out. There's a lot of consistency, but it's just that focus piece that is missing. And honestly, this is a side note, which, okay, maybe I bring it down to a 4 because of this, is it seems like there's inconsistent quality in their content. So like some of the articles are clearly SEO articles. I'm not sure like how much they'd be paying their freelance writers to write these, but like their relationship management piece, starts with the stats. What is relationship management? It's pretty high level for something that's all things CRM. But then there's another article. It started with "Story time is over," and it's basically on deal reviews. And that piece I thought was great. It was very short and sweet. I think like 600 or 700 words. It was clearly focused at sales leaders, at least directors of sales, if not VPs or CROs. And I could see a sales leader reading it in 2 minutes, like internalizing it, and then coming back to their team and saying, hey, like we need to revisit our deal reviews because we're not being specific and strategic enough about it. So there were a handful of pieces like that. It's just that consistency didn't flow through like we saw with Cognism. Mm-hmm. So I'll say a 4.
Solid 4 it is. Sam, on to social.
Yeah. So as I was going through like LinkedIn, they've got a pretty consistent output. But I was noticing that it was more self-serving, like not adding value with each post. So I like some of the series that they've put together, but I think that there's a big opportunity to do some repurposing of all, like they're putting out a lot of content, but not repackaging it for social. So that's kind of like my overall feel there. As far as like content and formatting goes on social, they use their page a lot for like company announcements, webinars, hiring, and showing off their people. Like one tactic they've used for hiring is that video series with their own employees talking about like their why. And I liked seeing that. I thought it was like a unique tactic to show people who they are and also like humanize their brand. So yeah, and then they've got some fun stuff incorporated. Like I saw a summer Spotify playlist. But I think the biggest missing piece is repurposing like their actual long form content. Like Brooklyn was saying, like a big opportunity content wise would be to update existing content. I think like they could be going back and repurposing a lot of that too, instead of just like focusing on what's currently going out. And yeah, when they share an article right now, it's mostly like your sales and marketing, are they aligned? Here's how to implement a new strategy. So it's not repackaging it for the platform. It's directing people off the platform, discouraging that native engagement. So I think that's a big area of improvement. And if I were them, I would just I'd have a list of formats on hand, like roundups, listicles, one-liners, when they have like taking the long form content and plugging it into those formats and scheduling them over a couple of weeks. So that way it's not just seeing the light of day one time, like they're getting multiple distributions out of each piece of content. And yeah, to wrap up, like tone and voice, I think I noticed a lot of we language, like saying we and us, and like right up front, it didn't feel like it was about me, like I was learning about them, and promotional language, like check this out, and some big words that felt a little less human, like implement, big adjectives like ever evolving, and just like stuff that I wouldn't normally say when I'm talking in a conversation. So I think there's the opportunity to still like humanize their presence even more. Like they've got a good head start, but on it, but it could feel more like a conversation. And yeah, the employees are liking their posts, but they're not really commenting. So I think that could be the next step in like adding value with the comments too. And yeah, I can wrap. I want to make sure we've got good time for sales and messaging too. But it's always hard grading, like but
an honest assessment. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah. I said my first, like my gut instinct was kind of a 4 out of a 10. Like they're present on social, but they're missing like the community and engagement aspect. So like there's a good start. They're there. There's just, some more pieces strategy wise to put in.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Is it time to move on to sales then, Nick?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
My summary of People.ai is enhanced traditional, but they have a really clean inbound process. So other than their form not working for a couple days, after that got fixed, when I went to go through the process, they cleanly and very politely said, you're not qualified, but they did it with a twist. Like, but we have this other offer that you would probably like. And it was another product line that was for me. And I was like, that was very clever. I will say, I'm going to bring this up because this ties in really well. Do the customer logos not justify who it's for? There's like 90,000 SaaS products. I don't know what all of them are. I don't know how many people they have. I don't know what type of programs they're running. So no, just no. I don't. That is not a good justification. If they're really big, like these guys had Zoom, Okta, Zendesk, yes, it shows they're high enterprise. Their program and their talk really I got economic buyer, which I'm more going to probably dive into. And so I feel like this actually causes more friction in their sales process, because when you're going through it, it's just the economic buyer, but people buy by committee. And so none of this supports the committee. It only supports the economic buyer, assuming that it's just the CEO or just the VP of finance, or I think it actually does them a disservice, but they have a really clean inbound process. Even their follow-ups were sequenced well. Cognism, like I kind of got weird cadences on when they emailed me that actually threw off the process, where these guys had a nice kind of a more clean push. And then they kind of circle back with webinars. But it looks like they must be driven by outbound, mainly calls and emails, using their own product.
So an overall score that for the sales side?
That's where I'm at right now. And I will say the social profiles mirror exactly what you said, Sam. Some people have done a really good job of owning that and putting their own unique twist on it. But for the most part, it's just the same kind of more product focused, or like company, this is what our company did. It's not really driven for social engagement. I think I'm going to give them a 7. But I would be really curious to be part of their outbound program and have somebody go and try and chase me, because the quality of their information seems really good, that I would be curious to see what type of approach or methodology they run. But since we're most of what we're talking about today is inbound, I'll base it off their inbound. It was a good process. Actually, heck to it, I'm giving them an 8 because they also gave me a recommendation after that. So I was like, that's a nice clean inbound process.
High praise. All right, so into messaging, shall we? So I will say, landing on Cognism, I immediately understood what they did. Landing on People.ai, I had to work for it, baby. I really had to work for it. And there's sort of two things going on, and I see this a lot, and I'm sure everybody here sees this a lot, which is that when a company positions themselves for enterprise, they use language that positions themselves to sound like they're for enterprise. And so what ends up happening is there's a lot of vague statements, and there's a lot of buzzwords, and there's a lot of sort of shop talk that is what maybe somebody would talk about internally in a company. But as a buyer, I honestly had to really hunt for understanding what they did. They're mostly not because I didn't understand that they were a revenue intelligence product, but I genuinely didn't understand why I would purchase it. And even when I was sort of the best thing that they have on their homepage is this like before and after without People.ai with People.ai. And it's unfortunate that this is on two separate tabs, and the with People.ai is by default because I didn't actually click it for like until the third time I visited the site. I was like, whoa, there's a before and after. I think that should just be a graphic or like some sort of slider or some way to compare and contrast, because it does clearly communicate what the product does. I was like, oh, I get this. Okay, I understand it. But there's this tension because once you go to a sub page, so there are two main, I don't know, CTAs from the homepage besides the get a demo were account management and opportunity management. And the difference in clarity between their top level page and then their account management page or opportunity management page was like night and day. I literally looked at their account management page and I was like, oh, okay, I understand this. This is exactly what I was looking for, but it's sort of couched or hidden. They're like burying the lead, which happens sometimes. They basically buried the lead where the the use case for the product itself is really straightforward. And I know they have a few different product lines here. And they also have this fourth one, which doesn't really appear anywhere, called People Glass, except in the menu. And there's a lot of sub pages beneath all of these pages, so somebody could really get lost, like learning more and more about the product. And it does get clear the further you go. It's just unfortunate that first impressions, I had to really work to understand what kind of revenue intelligence product they were and what they did. And I'll be honest to folks on this call, like I had to go to G2 to see who they usually were compared against to sort of like triangulate what they were in the market. Like if I wasn't going to buy People.ai, who would I buy? And that helped a little bit because I sort of understood and can compare and contrast. But if I was to offer, so I think they're sort of the vague enterprise language on the homepage is a great disservice to the overall product. The specific sort of jobs to be done language on the sub pages are a great service to the product. I think it's amazing how succinct and clear, and it makes sense. So that's on the what's it for. The who's it for is sort of a delicate balance for me as well, where it's like clearly an enterprise product. It's obviously built for enterprise. That's very clear. So like, well done. I understood that it was not for a small business who was looking to sort of bring together some different integrations. But, and I think Brooklyn maybe had brought this up a little bit ago, I wasn't sure, or Nick also had, I wasn't sure if it was, if they're selling to like RevOps specifically, or if they're trying to court CEOs. And I know from a messaging and a content perspective, it's difficult to balance different committee interests if you're trying to sell to everyone inside of a company. But I think that comes back to maybe discovering an insight that you can use to drive the market or to drive the overall messaging that like wakes up the CEOs or the VPs of RevOps and says, oh, I didn't, once they know it, they can't unknow it. I didn't see a lot of that. There was a lot of, we do these things for you, but there wasn't a lot of either here's why this is important or here's how we do it differently than some of our competition. And also it's funny, I think they actually have like a point of view page. Is that them? I may be actually mixing
customers.
Oh yes, they have customers. So, it's clearly oriented for the audience. I just wasn't like, I don't know, blown away. So 5 out of 10.
Okay. What's our final tally?
Well, with that banging sales score from Nick over here, they have achieved a can I do math? This is hard. 21 out of 40. So Cognism, I guess, wins. I don't know if that's how we wanted to do this all.
It's so interesting taking this sales audit and listening to how everyone here changed. And I think it was really neat to hear us even talk about how would we get to a 9 or a 10 and how it's affecting what's happening right now. And like even Cognism, great content. But for me, it's like, I feel like it's creating more work for sales. People.ai, I'm a little lost getting there, but when I do go through the process, it's quick. Imagine if these two just merged. I don't want to say copy each other, but like
strategies.
Think of how that would change the entire process. That would be a type of company that I would love to sell for.
Mm-hmm. So we're at time. Can we just do a quick little celebration because Brooklyn and Sam launched the Beam team, hashtag Beam team. No, launched Beam. Yay! Woohoo! Do you want to, in the last closing minute, where should people find more out about Beam?
Oh, sure. Thanks. We're at beamcontent.co, and Sam's running our LinkedIn and Twitter. So feel free to just connect with us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and you'll find the profile there.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everyone who's joined us. And this was another edition of the Content Power Hour. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Take care.